can see here where it's hitting the doubler outside of its area of interest or zone of influence or spot of need. I don't know what you want to call it. Dumb. But anyway, it looks like everything that's happening that I don't want is happening above the stringer where it doesn't matter. It's going to be trimmed off anyway. So let's go ahead and I guess mark and trim some of that down. Let's do this. Let's go back in. Let's get as far down as we can. Let's get this outside of the doubler where it's fitting flush against the actual, if I can. I think what's going to hold it off is this. So I just need to trim. Let's see, it's going to drop down a little bit, so I don't want to go too close. Let's come out here. And this is pretty much how I sized the initial shape of the template. I just laid the cardstock on the outside and then marked where the two bulkheads were on the inside. And that's how I got that initial lines on these, and gave us a reference point to begin making our cuts. So once I had the trace line, I just cut outside of it about 1/8 of an inch all the way around, and that way it left us plenty of room to trim to fit. You know, you gotta sneak up on it. You want to give yourself the room to make a mistake, or you know, to cut down to size and not do it all. Try to do it all at once. Things have to be fitted, and you know, you can't expect to just be able to cut apart and have it fit perfectly in one shot. That just is rare that you're going to get that to work. So now you can see how we have this configuration. I think that's good, and this is just enough overhang. So when I score cut this, fold it over, there'll be a bit of the cardstock out here that we'll just then have to slice off from the face of the stringer. So it just wraps the top of the stringer. Okay, so that's pretty much how you want that to look. And then on the inside, as you can see, once that's got that interior green paint all around in there, even though it's just cardstock, it can support the weight of just the balsa seat. That's really all that's going to be on it. It doesn't have to support the weight of the panel. It doesn't have to support the headrest or any of the other stuff. You know, the stick, the control stick will be drilled through it or popped, or actually just surface glued to it. Now what I can do, if I'm concerned about, you know, things warping or changing, I can X-brace this, or I can run straight braces right across between the two side keel halves, or two side keel parts. Just cut this to size so that it fits flush against the bottom of the cardstock, and glues to these rails in here, the inner rails of the side keel. And I can either X-brace it or just go straight across with 3 or 4 of these. I think X-bracing it is better overall. I could even put a flat sheet, you know, 16th balsa, and skin that underneath the cardstock. And that takes care of any wood grain. I don't have to sand for wood grain using the cardstock. There is none. And yet I would have the strength on the bottom of a solid piece of balsa. So now we could just do that. And it doesn't even have to inset to this. It could just be surface glued underneath the keel. If there's a small gap between the cardstock and the brace, that's fine. I still have something I can drill into if I want to run the control stick into the ground, into the floor, you know, for that sake of durability on that part. Now you see we're already pretty close here. I probably don't have to do much more than just score cut this, fold it over, and then trim the excess off from the outside. So we have now both of our cabinet sidewalls, or cockpit sidewalls, done. And the fitment looks pretty good, right? Cockpit floor, cockpit sidewalls, and the bulkheads make up the front and back. Okay, we're going to call that good, and that's pretty much how I do the cockpits. Whether I use cardstock or birch ply or 16th or finer balsa wood, 1/32 thickness balsa wood works for this too. It's just it can crack when you're working with that. So I usually use either the birch ply 1/32 or I use the cardstock to create cockpit tubs, and I just do it inside the plane. It's basically a ship in a bottle now, so I can make the little black boxes, the throttle quadrant, the flap control arm, the trim wheel, the radio, maybe a map case or a documents case, the kinds of things you'd find in a 1935 Army Air Corps pursuit airplane. Can go to the sidewalls, and then we have a decent looking panel in here, printed panel that I can put into a panel sandwich. As you've seen in the other videos, just use it, mark and drill the holes according to it, and create a panel with that. So and then a seat can be. The seats are easy, and I'll show you when we get to that point where we're going to scratch build an aircraft cockpit seat for a 1935 era warplane. So anyway, there you go. I thought that would be helpful for some. See how it's not impossible, it's not hard to do. I like looking at finished models on the internet, but I don't like to see unfinished cockpits. And again, if you're making a flyer, if this is going to be a balsa plane, stick and tissue, rubber bandy, or extra ultralight electric RC, you're not adding a ton of weight with cardstock. And a finished cockpit, even if you're just going to put a pilot bust in there or no pilot, that's the other thing. That's one of my, I don't know why. I hate the word, the term pet peeve, but when you see an RC or a rubber band airplane flying with an empty cockpit, I don't understand that. A pilot figure is part of the airplane, and it's especially of a flying airplane. I mean, it's one thing if you're building a static display that's just a parked aircraft. Yeah, there's not going to be a pilot sitting typically, with the engine off sitting there on a shelf. But if you're going to hang the airplane as a static display model, you need a pilot. And if you're going to fly an RC or rubber band airplane, you need something. Even if it's just a pilot bust on a popsicle stick, a drawing of a pilot, profile. I see that, and that's awesome. That looks like you've got an aviator. But what I can't stand, and I don't know why, the second I see it, if guys are out flying their RC, their steerman, their open cockpit especially, but any aircraft, and I see it, being taxied out and taking off, and there's nothing in the cockpit, what are you doing? I don't know what you're doing. It helps with the weight, right? If you got to add weight to the nose or add weight to the tail, or you're trying to figure out something about the weight, 9 times out of 10 they're vacuum formed, or they're made of foam, or they're made of cardstock, or it doesn't take anything to put an now I'm going off, and it's dumb. You do what you want. Everybody does what they want to do. That's the whole idea of scale modeling. I prefer, and this is where I should have left it, I prefer a furnished and occupied cockpit for my static display models, since I normally, they're too big for a shelf, right? Haywood Planes doesn't make 132 or 132 or 128 or 148 or any of that. I don't build those. Those are shelf. Those fit on a shelf. I guess I can't say I don't build them, but I don't often build. These are too big for a shelf, so they typically hang from the ceiling as display pieces. or they get mounted on a pedestal as if in flight. And when that happens, you gotta have an aviator. You're not gonna, you know, empty planes don't fly themselves. Well, they do now. You know, yeah, they do now. But I'm talking about when men were men and planes were planes and people were more or less adventurous or whatever. Guy sat in his airplane and flew it. He didn't stand on the ground. He wasn't in a mobile home somewhere in Nevada controlling an attack aircraft 8,000 miles away in Syria. So anyway, that's your cockpit. I went on. Again, too much talking, and I apologize for that. But anyway, everybody have a great day. Thanks for watching. Ciao.